Welcome to the Knowledge for Men show. Your life will never be the same.
Your level of success will seldom exceed your level of personal development.
I want to die empty of regret. I want to die empty of my best work. We don't understand who we are. Instead, we're living out somebody else's narrative.
What one man can do, another man can do. If it's been done, it can be done again.
Being yourself and being your truest, most authentic self in every moment. If it scares you or makes you a little afraid, do it. Follow your heart and your gut.
The first stage, I think, is finding you, like finding out who I am today.
Stuff will not work. You will have things that fail. Success is when you're a happy, fulfilled person. How do you define success?
It's your life, and you are the creator of the movie script that is your life story.
All right, guys, welcome to the show. I'm here with Jocko Willink. He spent 20 years in the U.S. Navy SEAL teams, starting as an enlisted SEAL and rising to become a commander of SEAL Team 3's Task Unit Bruiser, which was one of the most highly decorated special operations unit in the Iraq War. Jocko received the Silver and Bronze Star for his actions in Iraq. He's also a TEDx speaker, a fantastic talk, which I recommend you guys check out, and author of the New York Times bestselling book, Extreme Ownership, and also currently the co-founder of Echelon Front, where he's a leadership instructor and executive coach. Jocko, quite the intro here. Happy to have you here on the show.
Hey, how's it going?
All right. And Jocko, so we start off every show with a favorite success quote or some sort of saying that the guest has lived by. So what do you got for us? And, what does that mean to you?
I would say that the overall mantra, which I repeat to people when they ask me this question, which I seem to get asked on a fairly regular basis, is discipline equals freedom. And I think it's pretty self-explanatory. The more discipline you have in your life, the more freedom you're going to have in your life. So all those things that are hard to do, all those things that take discipline, those are the things you need to do.
What do you tell yourself when you're doing these things? They're hard to do. You don't feel like doing them. There's procrastination and resistance, and you have to do it, but you just don't feel like doing it.
I just do them anyways.
Do you disregard your emotions here? Or is it a stoic angle that you have when you have to be disciplined about your actions?
I just turn off my mind and do whatever it is I need to do. I think people are always looking for some sort of, remedy or some shortcut that's going to make them be able to do things that are hard easier. But no, they're hard things for a reason. So they're going to be hard. If they were easy, everyone would do them. And so if something's hard to me, it's fine. I don't care. I'm just going to do it anyways. No factor.
Yeah. So you're a very disciplined guy. I mean, obviously, just based on your intro here, there's quite a bit that you've done. Also, I didn't even say that for a good period of time, you're officer in charge of training all the West Coast SEAL teams. I'm curious to know, in that experience and having served for over about 2 decades now, what were some of those most common traits that you found were the traits that mattered when someone was going through BUD/S?
Well, BUD/S training is just not that big of a deal. Everyone makes it like it's a big deal. BUD/S, the basic SEAL training, is they're just going to make you do things that are hard and that suck. And then you get done with it. And that's when you go to the SEAL teams and actually start learning tactical information, learning how to shoot, move, and communicate, learning how to cover and move, learning the fundamental principles of combat leadership. That all happens after you get through BUD/S. BUD/S is actually pretty easy if you think about it. You get to work out a bunch, you get a bunch of free food, and you do push-ups and pull-ups and run obstacle courses, and it's fun. So I think people make a big deal out of SEAL training, but it's not that big of a deal.
So would you say, or what % of these guys trying to become SEALs are actually taken out in that whole, first 6 months versus the whole SEAL training? Because it takes quite a bit of time before you get that trident. It's not just after BUD/S.
Yeah, well, it's changed over the years, but there's, BUD/S has always been about 6 months long, and there's about an 80% attrition rate. So and then once you get past that, then the attrition rate goes down. But you still lose people. Even when you're at the SEAL teams, you still lose people. Even people that already have their trident get their trident taken away sometimes because they just don't have the mental or physical capacity to do the job.
Yeah. And what would you say are some of those main traits and characteristics that allow someone to become a SEAL?
To me, the most important trait for not just for a SEAL, but for a person to do well and to be successful is you got to be humble. And when someone's not humble, that's when all of a sudden they don't listen to anybody else. That's when they don't want to evolve anymore because they think they know everything. And so they don't make any changes. They won't improve. So the most important quality for me that I look for in other people and that I try and maintain in myself is the quality of humility, to make sure that you're always looking to improve and change and take input from other people so that you can improve yourself.
Yeah, I like that. And that's, obviously that's not something I was expecting. I thought it'd be something along the lines of willpower and grit. Of course, these are essential, but being humble is what you shared. Looking at your profile here and what you've accomplished is even when I just say that intro, did you realize, how does that make you feel when I say something like, man, you've been in the SEALs 20 plus years, you were training the teams. Is this something that you envisioned when you were younger? Is this how you saw that, your adult life was going to go?
Well, I always wanted to be some kind of a commando, some kind of a soldier my whole life since I can remember wanting to do anything. So that's really been no surprise. And the SEAL Teams is a really good organization, and I was happy to, I had a great time in it and worked with some really great guys. But, there's plenty of other people in other service branches that are, equally awesome or better.
Yeah.
And, the SEAL Teams also has a bunch of people in them that, that aren't that good. So it's a bell curve like any other organization where you've got some good people at the top, you've got some solid people in the middle, and you've got some people that aren't exactly long ball hitters at the bottom of the bell curve.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a ton of great servicemen all across the different branches. And so what was it for you when you had this aha moment, or what happened when you decided to leave and start Echelon Front and started transferring the skill sets you were learning on the battlefield, I guess, into the boardroom?
Well, I had reached 20 years. I had, had a family at the time, and I still do. I had 4 kids, and I'd done, multiple deployments overseas, and my kids didn't really even recognize me. And so I figured I better dedicate some time to my family, decided to retire. Just before I retired, a guy that was a CEO of a big company asked me, who I knew, he asked me to come and give a presentation to his executives about combat leadership. And so I went up there and I gave that briefing. And by the time I got done with that briefing, the CEO came up to me and said, "Hey, I need you to give this brief to every division at my company." And so I said, "Well, hey, I'm going to retire. I'm not going to be running around briefing people." And he said he'd pay me. And I said, "Okay, well, let's work on that then." So I went and did a bunch of divisional briefs. And at one of those divisional briefs, the CEO of the parent company was there, and he asked me to come and give the briefing about combat leadership to all his CEOs. And once I did that, a bunch of those CEOs wanted me to come and talk to them. And the next thing you know, I had another business getting started.
So what would you say are some of those core leadership skill sets that you transferred and apply over from what you learned in the SEALs and amongst all the other men that you worked with in the military to what you do now with civilians?
Well, it's really the same basic fundamental principles of combat leadership that I taught when I was in the SEAL teams running the training for the West Coast SEAL teams. The cover and move, keep things simple, prioritize and execute, decentralized command, and this idea of extreme ownership, which is, it's the name of the book that I wrote with my business partner and former teammate Leif Babin, who was one of the platoon commanders that worked for me in Ramadi, in the Battle of Ramadi in 2006. So the fundamental principles of combat leadership are leadership principles, not just for combat. They're for any time when you've got a group of people that you're trying to get them to accomplish a goal in the most effective and efficient way. And you got to unify them behind a solid plan that is overcoming what their personal beliefs might be as an individual. Because even though you're in the military and people think that the military is filled with a bunch of guys that are like Terminator robots, the fact of the matter is they're people, and they have their own thoughts, and they have their own emotions, and they have their own egos, and they have their own agendas. And so you've got to get these guys, again, unified behind a common plan so that you can move forward and execute. And it's the same thing, the same type of leadership principles that are used in business, because it's the same thing you have to do in business. You've got to get a bunch of people, individuals unified behind a common plan and get them to execute. It doesn't matter if you're on the battlefield trying to go capture, kill a bad guy, or if you're in the business world trying to manufacture a product or sell a product or build something, you're still doing the same thing, and the same combat leadership principles apply.
What I'm getting from this is emotions can really alter the decision-making of a leader, which can obviously impact the desired outcome. So are emotions bad on the battlefield?
Yes, they are. And, it's one of the things we talk about in the book. It's one of the things I talk about on my podcast all the time, is the ability to detach from all that chaos and all that mayhem and just detach, step back, take a breath, look around, and make a decision based on, instead of making a decision based on emotion, make a decision based on what the actual problems are and what the biggest problem is that you're facing, and focus on that one. So you absolutely getting emotional, whether it's dealing with people or whether it's dealing with scenarios, you have to be able to detach from that, step away from your emotions, and make good, clear decisions based on logic.
So if I'm, let's say I'm struggling to get in the gym, and if I let my emotions come and get the best of me here, is it then going to be harder for me to get my butt in the gym?
If your emotions are telling you not to go to the gym, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like I'm just experiencing resistance. I can't get in there. I'm tired. I've got excuses. I've got 10 other things on my mind. I'm hungry.
Yeah, those are just pathetic weaknesses that you need to crush.
Or if someone needs to go on the team and it's a tough emotional decision to let someone go and you're getting worked up about what you should do, emotions would then make that decision harder?
Well, they'll definitely make the decision harder, and it's always hard when you got to get rid of someone on the team. You're gonna ruin their life, in many cases. You're gonna fire somebody, you're gonna ruin their life. So there's definitely gonna be emotions involved, and that's why, as a leader, you have to make sure that you've done everything you can to mentor and coach and help that person get to where they need to be. But if they can't get there, then yeah, they need to go, and you need to make sure that your loyalty to the person doesn't supersede your loyalty to the team. Because if the person is not doing their job, then they're hurting the whole team.
Right.
And that's what you need to keep in mind.
Right. Do you have a balance of when you're going to turn off the emotions and turn them on? So when you come home and family, or if you're dating, or if with friends and other members of your family?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying walk around and be an emotionless person that's void of emotions, because if you're that, even in a leadership perspective, never mind a family, if you're a leader and you're void of emotions, then people aren't going to follow you because you're a robot. So I'm not saying be void of emotions. What I'm saying is that you need to make sure that your emotions aren't affecting your decision-making process, which, you watch anybody that loses their temper and throws their iPhone across the room and smashes it. Well, 20 seconds later or 30 seconds later, they realize they made a mistake and they made a bad decision. So those are the kind of emotions, and that's an extreme example. Those are the kind of emotions you need to get a hold of and make sure you're not acting like an emotional train wreck.
Yeah. I just wanted to make that clear for the audience, that you're not running around as a robot, but you are showing some empathy, and emotions are definitely important, but it can definitely cloud your decision-making ability.
Yeah, no doubt. And sometimes in leadership position, you have to basically fake your emotions. If someone's, you might have to say, all right, this guy really went out of bounds. I see what he did. It's a mistake, but he doesn't seem to realize that it's a mistake. I might have to get, a little bit emotional with him so he realizes it. If I'm dealing with you, Andrew, and you messed up with a client and you're like, I messed up with a client. It wasn't a big deal though. And I say to you, yeah, okay, well, let's move on to the next client. You go, cool, then it wasn't a big deal. But if I say, Andrew, that was a big client, that was important to us, we're going to lose a lot of money because of that situation. You need to concentrate next time and make sure we don't lose it. I mean, just a little bit of emotion from me will make you realize, oh, I might have screwed up worse than I saw. So sometimes you got to use your emotions to your advantage, even from a leadership perspective.
Yeah. And your book here, Extreme Ownership, and also your TED Talk on the same topic, and a very powerful story in that TED Talk, which I recommend the audience to see. What role does ownership play in a leader? And also not just a leader, but a man, someone who is going to take ownership of his mistakes and his fuck ups.
Yeah, well, that you just said it. It's not really the most complicated thing in the world. Unfortunately, it's pretty hard to do. You get people that make mistakes, or they have problems, or things go wrong, and all they want to do is blame other people, blame other things in the world, and that's not what you should do. When something goes wrong, you take ownership of the problem and you get it fixed. That's the fundamental theory behind extreme ownership. Take ownership of what things go wrong and get them fixed. That's it.
What are you noticing that people are doing? So why did you feel compelled to write a book about what you said is a simple topic, but so hard to do, so hard to implement?
Well, I started seeing it while I was in the SEAL teams, and you'd see somebody, a platoon commander or a troop commander, that they would go out on a training operation and things would go sideways and they'd do a bad job. And when they'd come back to base for the debrief, they would just blame everybody else for things that went wrong. And the commander, I'm talking about the commander, would blame the assistant commander, would blame the platoon chief, would blame the new guys, blame everybody else when something went wrong. And when you do that, what does that do to the team? If I blame you, Andrew, for something, if I say, hey, you failed this deal, you let me down, this is your fault, what's your instant reaction going to be?
I'm going to not be happy about working with you.
Yeah, you're not going to be happy about working with me. You're probably going to get defensive. You're going to place the blame back on me or back on someone else. And that's what you end up with. You end up with a whole team where no one's taking ownership of the problems. And then obviously no one solves the problems because no one takes ownership of them. So that's where I saw it initially, was in the SEAL teams, just with guys. And I saw it even as a young enlisted guy when I was not the boss, when I was a regular sled dog in a SEAL platoon. If the boss took ownership of stuff, you wanted to give that boss support. You wanted to fix it for him. But if the boss was blaming you, all you did was say, hey, this guy's just trying to shift the blame and he doesn't take responsibility even though he's the guy in charge. Why do I want to work hard for him? So that becomes very problematic.
And this applies over into other aspects of life. I mean, we're talking about business, you're talking military, leadership, but I could see this, perfectly going right into relationships with a significant other.
Yeah, I guess so.
Not taking ownership of things that you didn't do, not taking ownership of commitments that were broken, perhaps.
Yeah, it's the same when you're dealing with human beings and all you do is place blame on everyone else. You're going to be unsuccessful in the long run.
What is the root of that, you think? Like, what is the root of someone who's constantly pointing the fingers at everyone else and they just can't point that finger back at themselves when they are clearly in the wrong?
Yeah, the root of that is pure ego.
What would be some examples that you have seen in your times in the SEALs where ego clearly led to some very bad decision-making when you were on the field?
I saw that over and over again, especially when I was running training. Yeah. You get guys that their platoon's not doing well, and you say, hey, here's what you're doing. Maybe you should try this. And they say, no, I'm going to keep doing it my way. And even though their way is clearly not working, but their ego is too big and they can't say, you know what, I do need to make some adjustments. I'm going to change my approach into what you're saying or what I'm being advised to do. Instead, they just say, no, I'm going to keep doing what I've been doing, and they continue to fail. So ego will get you every single time if you're not careful. Yeah,
I know Ryan Holiday has this book, Ego is the Enemy. I think there it is. Like the entire book, the title just shares with you what that whole book is about. And I think for a lot of us, the ego can be good, but in many ways it could be the downfall of many potential great leaders.
Yeah, no doubt. And again, ego, there's a balance in everything. And we talk about that in the book as well, the dichotomy of leadership, but there's certainly a balance with ego. And you don't, if you had no ego whatsoever, well, then you don't care if you fail. You don't care if you don't do well. You don't care if you're in last place. And then that's not good. I don't want to bring a person like that on board my team. I want people that want to win. And so wanting to win is driven in large part by ego. So that's fine. It's not all negative. But the problem comes when you, again, like I just said, when your ego gets out of control and you can't be humble and you can't put your ego in check, well, then you start making bad decisions based on more about protecting your ego than doing what's best for the team and what's best for the mission.
Yeah, ego it's so quiet, but it controls so much of our actions. And I think getting control of that can help us really rise to become better leaders. Now, what would you say are maybe some daily habits that you have that help you stay more disciplined? Like, what are some like little things I do? I take a cold shower every morning. I work out in the morning. Little things like that just help me stay disciplined when it's time for me to do bigger things and like writing a book or creating a project or putting on a seminar. What are some little things that you do, some habits or rituals that you consistently have been doing?
I wake up early every morning and work out. Work out hard every day.
What's early? Some guys, I'm thinking you're a super early guy.
No, I mean, it's not super early. I get up at 4:30.
That's super early, yeah.
Well, it depends on who you are, you know, and people have different times. You know, you can find some single mom out there in, some downtrodden area, and she's working 3 jobs to try and keep her food on the table for her kids. And she's getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning to go, get ready to wait tables somewhere at a breakfast joint. So, I wake up at 4:30. It's kind of a luxury, actually.
Why do you say it's a luxury? Was it just 20 years?
I'm sleeping in a nice, bed on most nights and, sleeping without any major threat to my safety each night. So
yeah,
it's pretty good.
What else? So waking up early is a key thing that you've been doing for quite some time. Anything else here?
Yeah, I think getting a workout in, make sure you work out every day. That's very important because it's really easy to make excuses. And especially that's why I think working out early in the morning is very important, because the longer you wait to work out, the less chance you have of actually getting it done, because the rest of life starts to chime in on your day. And you start to have other people email you and call you and text you with their issues and problems and things that they need done. And so it's no longer your day. It's now everyone else's. So if you wake up early in the morning and you get your workout done before anyone else wakes up, you're good, and they can't take that back from you.
Yeah. Really prioritizing yourself. I thought that was interesting. You talked about just earlier, you said, hey man, waking up 4:30, that's a luxury. I have no major threats to me. You know, obviously I had mentioned that you had served in Iraq, and not just in Iraq, the region, but in the most dangerous, one of the most dangerous regions during that time, in one of the most dangerous years. What are some of those things, like little things that I think maybe civilians take for granted, and when you come back, you just notice a lot of different things?
Well,
like
if you want
grateful,
if you want to look at it that way, there's so many things that we take for granted every single day that are a complete luxury. For instance, turning on the water and getting to drink it. You know, that's not common in other parts of the world. It certainly isn't something you can do in Iraq at all. You know, we have a comfortable temperature, you know, in a room to sleep in. It's not 115 degrees. Because we have air conditioning, we have electricity, we have lights, we have freedoms. And, you know, it's really easy to forget that in America, that there's so much freedom that we have here to go out and do things that you want to do and chase pursuits that you want to chase. And the rest of the world, or I shouldn't say the rest of the world, there's other parts obviously that are like that, but much of the world, that's a fantasy that they don't have the opportunity to do. So yeah, I think there's a lot of things that we can sometimes take for granted in the civilian sector, for sure.
Yeah. I think it's just sometimes those little things, we got to hear that sometimes, just being grateful for what we do have, because we're constantly being told, or it feels like this message on social media and others that there's just, we got to be doing more. We got to have more, got to be more. And I think that's an important message, but also not forgetting that there's a lot that we do have that is very, very great.
Yeah, no doubt about that.
So, man, I want to get your take on, you know, this is more of a personal thing, but like SEALs have a lot of attention. I think in the last decade, absolutely. I think in every 2 decades or so, it seems like there's a different unit, but the SEALs definitely have a lot of attention. My question for you is, aren't Special Forces soldiers not allowed to be talking about their missions, but they seem to do so in their books or in movies or in Hollywood? Isn't that stuff isn't that a part of the deal when you join Special Forces?
Well, there's certain operations that we can talk about that we cannot talk about. And there's certain ones that, you know, when I was in Ramadi, we were out in the streets in the middle of the daytime with, you know, there would be reporters there taking pictures. It was a major push that was on the news. So there was nothing classified about what we were doing, and you know, the parts of how we did it, we don't talk about, you know, specific tactics, techniques, and procedures that we don't talk about. So yeah, we have to be very careful that we never give up anything that may, you know, bring harm to any American or allied forces. And we're very careful we're beyond careful. We're paranoid and extremely cautious that we never do anything remotely close to that.
Yeah. Have you seen this new show called Six?
I have not. I don't. Is it? If it's on TV, then I haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's a show about SEAL Team 6. It's on the History Show. It's like 8 episodes. I'm just wondering what the SEAL community feels like, that there's just so much attention on them. Do they like it? Is it wrong? Would they rather be kept quiet? It seems like after the show 6 came out, Fox, CBS, and ABC also said that they're launching Navy SEAL drama shows.
I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, maybe if you heard some things. That I was just trying to get your own personal.
You know, in general, the SEALs are a community that one of the mantras that I was raised with is being a quiet professional. Yeah. And obviously, I wrote a book about being in the SEAL teams, so there's a hit and a ding against me in my mind for doing that. But I think what we need to do is make sure that we represent the community in the right light, and from a perspective where we're trying to make sure that we're honoring, number one, the guys that went before us and telling the story of the sacrifices that were made in combat. And then when we do talk about being in the SEAL teams, we're not trying to be someone that we were not when we were in the SEAL teams. I mean, the platoon commander that wrote the book with me, Leif, we're not trying to pretend that we were something that we were not when we were in the SEAL teams. We did what we did. And I think and we talk about what we did, we didn't try and blow anything out of proportion or make it seem like we did something more than we did. We just talk about what we did, what lessons we learned. As a matter of fact, if you read the book, a lot of it is mistakes that we made. And so I think that approach is why my friends in the SEAL teams, are say, hey man, keep doing it, keep getting the word out there,
right.
Because they would rather be represented in that way than be represented in a way that makes us look like a bunch of glory hounds.
Yeah. Appreciate your opinion there. And I noticed too, you said, hey, I don't even watch TV. What is that? And it's a show about, guys like yourself. How's your day structured? You don't watch TV. Like when you wake up 4:30, I think just hearing how you structure your day would be valuable to see the level of discipline throughout your day.
Yeah, I wake up early in the morning, work out. I get done with that. Then, it's starting to get to sunrise. If the waves are good, I'll go surfing. If they're not good, then I won't. Maybe I'll do some other little physical activity at that time. And then I come and we have a business echelon front where we're working with a bunch of clients, and I'll be going through those types of meetings, or I'll be working on writing or preparing for my podcast, reading in preparation for my podcast. So and then when I get done with all that, I go to jiu-jitsu. I have a MMA gym in San Diego and train jiu-jitsu every night. So that's pretty much it.
Nice. And yeah, I'm actually here in San Diego. I'm aware of it's the Victory MMA.
Yep.
Yeah. Great gym. What has Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu taught you? I had trained it for many years and competed, and I'm always curious when I see someone who trains. I think that there is a number of lessons learned on the mat that apply directly into life.
Well, obviously, one you learn in jiu-jitsu is humility, because even when you think you're good and you're big and strong, you're still going to get tapped out by people that are smaller and weaker than you if they know more. And that's the way life is. If you're not constantly trying to improve yourself, you're going to go backwards. And I think the other important thing to realize from jiu-jitsu is, you have to learn to not go strength versus strength with people. And if you continue to try and attack someone's strengths in an area they're reinforcing, you're not going to be able to get it. So you have to flank people. You have to come from angles that they aren't expecting. And that is how you are going to win. So those are principles. I wouldn't say I learned them from jiu-jitsu. I think I learned them from my experience in the SEAL teams and jiu-jitsu. I think they complement each other very well. Yeah. And then my experience in the business world, dealing with people and dealing with humans, is the same thing there. So it's across the board. Those are principles that stick everywhere.
I could imagine that being an aha moment or an interesting moment when you're coming in, you're special forces soldier, you've done so much training on yourself. I'm sure that there's MMA training inside the SEAL teams, but when you get on the mat, there's different rules, and someone who is significantly smaller being able to throw you around. I'm sure that was an interesting experience.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And, there's two reactions you can have to that experience that I've seen from guys. One is avoid that situation at all costs. So never, try and avoid ever being in a situation like that again. So you never have to feel it. Yeah. Or you say, okay, I'm going to learn everything that this person knows and more, so that then I can do that to them. And that was the approach that I took.
Yeah. I'm getting from you that being humble and having a growth mindset allows you to circumnavigate through life's challenges.
I would say that's a fair assessment.
All right. This has been great. And so let's now dive into the knowledge round. I just want to ask you some rapid fire questions, but just shorter gut level responses from yourself, Jocko. So are you ready?
Shorter than the 2-word answers I've been giving you?
You have been giving me short answers, and I guess we'll keep them about that length. But let's dive in here with the first question, and it's, Jocko, what advice would you give to someone who's feeling really lost and unsure of their purpose?
Pick a target and engage.
What do you think is holding most men back from becoming stronger, grounded men?
Weakness and a lack of discipline.
And so your book here, Extreme Ownership. Guys, check it out. It's a powerful book and New York Times bestselling book at that. But for yourself, Jocko, what have been 3 of your most influential books that have helped you on your journey, and why?
About Face by Hackworth, Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy, and Henry V by Shakespeare.
And what's the theme amongst those books?
The theme amongst those books is war, violence, and leadership. And encompassed in those three things, the most important part is human nature. Human nature.
All right, really good. I'll check some of those out. And this next question is actually a scenario for yourself. So imagine you, Jocko, had 60 seconds with your 25-year-old self. If you could envision where he's at personally, professionally, even his relationships, and knowing what you now know today, if you could sit down with 25-year-old Jocko, what would you tell him to do, and what would you tell him not to do?
I would tell him, don't waste time because you haven't got much of it.
And man, that's been a common thread, I think, on this show is having a high sense of urgency amongst goals and just what you'd like to experience and achieve in this world. My personal question with that, because I do believe it, is where do you draw the line for balance? Or if I'm saying this right, enjoying that journey.
I'm not saying don't have fun. I'm saying don't waste time.
Yeah.
I'm not saying enjoy yourself. I'm saying don't waste time. I'm not saying don't get after it in a multitude of different ways. I'm saying don't waste time. YouTube, waste of time. Television, waste of time. Surfing the internet, waste of time. So none of those things will bring you any, balance. They'll just bring you weakness and make you, out of shape and drain your brain. So that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about don't have fun. Have fun, but do something productive.
Yeah. I wanted to make it clear because I think it can be taken in a different light when we have such a high sense of urgency among achieving goals. But I like the approach, and I think you answered it very well. And so now, even if you have to summarize some of your main points here, Jocko, completely fine. What would you say is your philosophy on life and success?
Discipline equals freedom.
Discipline equals freedom. Coming back to the quote here, what would you say is for someone who is completely lacking in discipline and they know that this is something that they need to improve upon, what would you say to that man right now in order to get that freedom?
Be more disciplined.
I guess you have a very straightforward approach to how you navigate through it.
Yeah, I mean, this is people ask me this every single day. They'll ask me, they write it into my podcast, they'll call in, they'll send social media. They're wanting me to say, well, if you do this breathing technique, or if you do these morning exercises, or if you eat this certain food, then that will give you the pathway to discipline. It's all just a big lie. Here's the deal. It's not easy. Do it. I don't see, again, people want to talk around and make things into some super special secret sauce. There isn't any. You have to work. You have to have discipline. That's it.
Yeah. That's exactly what I was looking for. That's powerful. I mean, just the message alone and just coming from your background and experience, if it's as simple as that, then that's what it is. And I think that we should adopt that and not overcomplicate it. Turmeric does not increase discipline is what okay. There's no supplement that increases discipline. You just got to get out and do it. All right. And so now what's exciting you today, Jocko? Like, what are you looking forward to when you get out of bed in the morning? 4:30 a.m. What are you driving towards?
Life. Being alive, that excites me in the morning.
Inside that, are there any projects or anything that you're building right now that you'd like to share with the audience?
Well, I have a kid's book coming out May 2nd. It's called The Way of the Warrior Kid. I have another book coming out in October of 2017. It's called Discipline Equals Freedom Field Manual.
All right, there. I'll be sure to check those out. Is the kids book? Was it because many parents were asking you how does this translate? How can I raise a disciplined kid? Because I think that it starts young.
Yeah, definitely had a lot of kids. I mean, a lot of parents asking about it, and also I've got 4 children, so I understand that there's a lack of books out there that really teach kids the necessary tools to survive in the world. So I wanted to be able to give that to some kids out there.
With your own kids, do you have a vision for what you'd like them to be doing? Do you want them to pursue military, especially the Navy SEALs, or what is your approach to what they would like to do and like kind of helping them find their purpose?
I don't really care where they go as long as they go hard.
Yeah, it could be anything. It could be art, it could be business, it could be Hollywood. Just go hard.
Whatever.
I like the approach. And so for the audience here, Jocko has his own podcast. You guys, honestly, you Googling it is, if you type in Jocko Willink, you'll see all his other podcasts that he's done. You could see his own show that he's done, JockoPodcast2.com. Also go to Amazon and check out Extreme Ownership. It looks like you got the kid book is already, looks like it's out, right? Or it's coming out.
It comes out. It's been on pre-sale for a little bit, but it comes out May 2nd.
All right. So it should be out pretty soon when this thing goes live. And then Discipline Equals Freedom looks like it's coming out this fall. So everybody can put that on their wish list. But Jocko, it's been a pleasure having you here on the show and, listening into your story and sharing your advice here with my community.
Right on, man. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Knowledge for Men podcast. Hundreds of interviews and millions of downloads later, we're continuing to build an international movement, and we're just getting started. So if you enjoyed this episode, go ahead and leave a helpful review in iTunes because it really helps the podcast grow so we can impact even more men in the world who need this. Guys, this is all about living with purpose, where every day you only do things that matter to you. You wake up, live with purpose, and take massive action towards the life you want. And always remember, love the life you have while creating the life of your dreams. Go to kfmfree.com to get a surprise bonus I've made for my listeners. Again, that's kfmfree.com for something that's changed my life, and I'm offering it to you for free. Also, check out my Amazon best-selling books that I've written for you to help you crush life at kfmauthor.com. Again, that's kfmauthor.com to see all the books I've created to help you break through in life. This is your host, Andrew Farabee, founder of KnowledgeForMen.com, and I'll see you in the next episode.